Hello friends and enemies, welcome to, or back to, happy for now, it's me Isabel here with your Romancelandia monthly for January. Why? I have one question, y'all. Why was everyone so badly behaved this month? What is going on? Oh my goodness, what is going on? I literally cannot believe how much happened in January because it just feels bonkers. I have a lot of notes here, okay? We have a lot of notes. So we're gonna dive right in. First things first, we're gonna talk about the character of the month on TikTok. Holly and her twin sister, I guess, decided that a post someone made that was not directed at them in any way was directed at them, and it was their time to speak out on why they are not gonna read diversely with their American flags and sort of things in the background. Those of us who know those kind of people. But they do this and then talk about how basically we're all miserable people and don't know how to find joy in anything because some of us choose to read diversely on purpose. And that discourse was banana pants. And I feel like it was never ending for a hot minute there, but also led to some amazing comedy moments because in her follow-up video, she called us all miserable. And also, instead of saying author, said Arthur. Thus, beautiful memes and jokes were born because who doesn't love our library-loving Arthur from PBS? So yeah, we had lots of really fun jokes about that. I'll link to a couple videos about this down below for y'all, but I just kind of wanted to touch on it. I think the one thing I need to say here is if you don't want to read diversely, I think you can do that without announcing it to the world and looking like an asshole. I don't know. I just feel like it's not that difficult. Am I gonna judge you? Yeah, probably. But again, you don't have to announce it to the world and then be mad that people think you're racist because you said you don't want to read diversely, because that's kind of what you're saying. I don't know. I'm team say it with your full chest and just let me know right off the bat that you're not somebody I want to associate with versus pretending differently. So for me, this whole thing was kind of amusing to watch unfold, but also I just don't understand. Why do you want to go make a fool of yourself that quickly? I don't know. Something funky was going on there, but apparently she's a twin, and they both, I think, have deleted their TikToks now. So, they kind of got run off the platform. Oops. But yeah, that was a delight. I know Heather over at Booktube has a great video where she talks about why she reads diversely and covered some of what was said in these videos. So if you want to check it out, I would do that. I'm not going to put them here because, honestly, I didn't screen record them the first time, and by the time I went to, they were gone. So that's where we're at. Next things, let's talk about some reader bewares. I kind of ended up with 2 this month, so we've got a little category for this. One of these is not a romance author, but it did just happen, and I kind of wanted to talk about it because I just wanted to keep people who watch my channel and do also make content. I just wanted to talk about this and have people keep this in mind when these requests are made, that this is not appropriate. J.D. Baker, a horror author, sent out an email for his PR company, sent out an email for a promotion of his newest book. And the idea was for it to be someone scantily clad and very taboo-y, sexy situation happening. And there was price tiers. And then the author was going to review the post himself and provide critiques. So basically what I'm hearing is you want young girls, it was a mix of age groups, honestly, that this got sent out to on TikTok that I saw, but you want younger-ish girls and women to send you sexually explicit videos almost, bordering on sexy videos, right? Some nudity, shadows of skin, moving the book over private parts with taboo things, the wildest place you've done it. I'll throw it up here. There's the list, but I don't think so. This is 100% to me screams of, hey, I want to pay you to basically make me OnlyFans content to promote my book. And then my favorite part of this is then JD was oh, I didn't do that. That was my PR company. I didn't approve that. Guess who co-owns the PR company? Oh, the author? Yeah. Are we surprised? Because I'm not surprised. This is just I wanted to share this because I said I think this is a warning in the fact that I think we will see requests like this come through sometimes. And I just want to warn everybody, don't do things you're not comfortable with no matter how much money they're going to give you. And second of all, I don't think that's an appropriate request of a book influencer in any capacity. I don't know, it skeeves me out. Even if it was anyone asking this of you, I feel can be very inappropriate, especially if they're not verifying ages before. We're getting into some dicey territory here because you don't always know how old people are when you send these kinds of requests. But yeah, that was a time. All right, next up we have Shell Rose. I really appreciate this TikToker who basically called her out because Shell Rose kind of pushed back and was like, that's not what this is. But there was a TikTok reviewer who called out an issue in a Shell Rose book that she arc read and privately messaged the author and her team. And they basically said, that's not rape, which it was marital rape. And they basically said, that's not rape because they're married, so it's fine. And that doesn't need to be a content warning. And I was just like, why do you not, like, if somebody's telling you, like, hey, you might want to make this a content warning, I just feel like you're better off to do it than not. Like, I don't know. I just don't think it's that difficult to add another content warning. So she basically, like, told this reviewer, like, they kind of told her to F off. People started bullying her that were on the team of Shell Rose. And, like, one of the ladies' husbands was, like, being mean to her in comments and shit. I'm going to link to all her TikToks for y'all down there. And I'll link to her review. I'll pop it up here for you. But I just think it's really questionable for a romance author to, one, not want to content note something like that, and two, to push back and say that it's not rape is really, like, demeaning to those who have experienced it. I just was really uncomfortable with this entire situation, but I deeply, deeply respect the creator who was like, hey, this is not okay. I'm not gonna sit down and, like, let y'all just run me over with this, because that's kind of what they were trying to do. All right, let's move on to something fun. Let's talk about Atria books. This, first of all, we just need to talk about a couple of things. Apparently, some people think this publisher is indie. They're not. They're owned by Simon & Schuster. But also, they publish Colleen Hoover books. So, like, they have money. And that is why they sent Mark Sebastian on the 9-month cruise for a segment. And I think this was really funny because a lot of people were mad because, like, he's not an actual book talker and they sent him to host a book club. But I also think it worked out kind of well. I didn't hate having him on the cruise. I thought it was funny that he basically handed off the book stuff to the other cruise lady, Angie, who I actually really enjoy watching, who reads. Like, she has a reading update almost every day. So I thought that was funny, but I do think it's interesting that we sent a non-bookish influencer to run a book club on a cruise ship for 18 days or so. Hit me up. I'll go. You may be co-host publisher. I'll go. That's fine. But I do just think it was an interesting addition and an interesting marketing tactic for the publisher. I don't know how successful of a marketing tactic it was, nor do I know if they needed that. But either way, I just think it was a funny, interesting move. Like I said, I know it upset a lot of people. I'm mostly indifferent on it because I feel like, honestly, like, it was such a weird choice overall. Like, I don't know who in the book world I would have sent either that I know of. You know what I mean? So I just think it was interesting. I also thought it was interesting to have somebody who, like, doesn't read maybe try and read. But either way, listen, I'm deep in the 9-month cruise TikTok. But yeah, I don't know if he finished the book or not even. But I just thought it was interesting to see this unfold overall. And what a very, very, very unique choice for publishing to make. Because again, I just don't feel like that's a thing that we've ever seen happen before. Like, I don't feel like there's a lot of trips sponsored by publishers or things like that. So I was just like, interesting. Next up, we have Devney Perry. So I have had a thorn in my side about this series for a long time. If you're new here, you don't know this. But Devney Perry has her Clifton Forge series. I think that's what it's called. It's her motorcycle club books. And she changed the series name because it had a slur in it. She changed the book name because it had a slur in it. She never changed the name of the motorcycle club inside of the books, which still was a slur. And we just now finally, like, in the last month, she shared a big post about changing covers, I guess, and, like, turning the skull covers into special edition sort of situation. And has changed the name of the motorcycle club throughout the book. I just feel like it would have been easier to change this when you changed the series name because all the books weren't out yet. So, like, it would have been less editing to go back and fix. Supposedly, we officially have fully changed the name of the motorcycle club to no longer be a slur. And it's a slur that I think a lot of us know, but a lot of us don't know. And I'm not going to say it here, but it is for the Romani people. And like I said, I think it's a slur that some people just didn't know for a long time. I have met people that I've, like, educated on it being a slur. Like, they had no idea. And because of that, I try to, like, give some grace around it, right? You can always learn to do better. But I feel like she learned and then didn't, like, fully do better. So I'm just happy to see it fully out of the book series now. Oh, okay. Another fun thing that happened this month, I guess we'll call it. I consider Chuck Tingle a honorary / a member of the romance community. So I think this makes sense to share here. But Chuck Tingle versus the Texas Library Association is fantastic. If you're unfamiliar with Chuck Tingle, he does not reveal his identity. And because of that, he wears this pink bag over his head. And he was invited to be a speaker at the Texas Library Association in 2024 at their conference. And then they rescinded the invitation after asking his publisher if he would remove his mask. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, that's his whole thing. And I was like, yeah, like, you can't ask Chuck Tingle to not wear his mask. Like, we're not supposed to know who he is. And some of it has to do with, like, his neurodivergence and autism and other things too. But part of the appeal of Chuck Tingle, I feel like, is never knowing what he looks like or, like, who he really is. Like, nobody knows his real name. I mean, I'm sure somebody does, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a sense of, like, anonymity there. So they basically were like, okay, you're not invited now. And then he, like, wrote about it. And they're like, we take it back. You can come and wear your mask. And I was just like, how do you get as far as inviting Chuck Tingle, who, like, I'm gonna throw a picture up here, okay? Like, how do you invite him and then be like, oh, you can't wear that? What? I will link to all his posts about this. This is a fantastic read. I had a good giggle / also got mad, but, like, it was a fun time still, so I highly recommend checking it out. All right, y'all. I think this is my favorite discourse of the month. So I no longer read Tessa Bailey for various reasons, but she shared this graphic, and I have to tell you that it had me giggling for days. Okay, here is the picture that got posted or reposted on social. So the book's Fangirl Down. The book is Fangirl Down. It says Bad Boy Golfer. There's butt stuff. She's his #1 fan. Grumpy Sunshine, Touch Her and Die, and then Forced Proximity. So I just think it's really funny because okay, we're gonna caveat this. I do believe any character can have Touch Her and You Die energy. Like, it can happen. I don't know that I think a bad boy golfer in his khakis and polo can have Touch Her and You Die energy for me. Again, I do believe it can happen for any like love interest. This can present, right? Like the Touch Her and Die thing, because, like, I've seen edits in which I was like, yeah, somebody had an edit of the dad from Modern Family, and I was like, you know, very much Touch Her and You Die energy. But he also looks like a buttoned up, like, preppy boy, you know? But I'm just saying, like, all I can envision is him, like, chasing somebody down in a golf cart. This one's semi-viral on Twitter, I feel like. And it was so funny reading responses because people were just like, what is he gonna do? Pull up on his, in his golf cart and just, like, do a, like, quick turn, drift into place and, like, threaten somebody? I also am very confused. I never thought about golfers having fangirls, but I guess they do. And then she's, like, his last fan, apparently, which I think is also very weird. But I could not find anyone to confirm women being fangirls of golfers either. But I want to note too here, I think this is where we're running into some issues in book promotions. TikTok and Instagram and lots of spaces have condensed things down into tropes. I mean, we do trope recommendations, right? Videos on YouTube even. And I think sometimes authors think all they need to market their book is a trope. And I need more than a trope to make me pick up a book. Listen, there's a couple tropes that I will instant pick up and buzzword things. But I need more than just, like, he's a bad boy golfer and Grumpy Sunshine to know that I want to read a book. Tessa Bailey, I'm not reading it anyways, but I'm just saying, like, we're really condensing down romance as a genre in a weird way to only be trope-based when, like, there does have to be more happening in a story than these tropes being delivered on. I feel like I need to see good delivery of the trope, but also a really good story / romance being told. It's not just flat out give me all the tropes, but I do feel like that's the difference between somebody who writes to trope and writes a story in romance also. And Tessa, for me, has definitely become a, like, writes to the trope more than anything. Let's move on to some more bad stuff. A book that came out last winter, 'Tis the Season for Revenge, got called out this year. I will insert a TikTok about that right here for you.
Y'all asked for it, so here's the reason why I gave 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth 1 star. In my December reading wrap-up, I had mentioned that this book was just so not romantic, and it had really poor Latina representation. Obviously, there will be spoilers in this video, so if you don't want those, don't watch. I also have my emotional support kitty with me, and so we're going to do this together. Never mind, I don't have my emotional support kitty with me anymore. All right, let me start by talking about the representation in this book and why I thought that it was poorly written, poorly done. When our two main characters meet for the first time, our female main character, Abby, says that she thinks our male main character, who is Latino, Damien's accent is exotic. Earlier in the book, we read that Damien is from the Bronx. And so my question is, would the word exotic still be used to describe an accent from the Bronx if our male main character was white and not Latino? The word exotic shows up once again in this book when the main characters are at a restaurant and they're talking about ingredients and unorthodox means of cooking. The use of the word exotic in both of these instances when referring to Damien's accent and talking about food and ingredients and cooking styles is just a display of cultural dominance and is used to reinforce xenophobic and racist stereotypes and ideas about people from different cultures. My second qualm is the use of the word naranja in this book as a nickname and how it just doesn't make sense. The author used naranja as a nickname in this book because it stems from a Spanish phrase, mi media naranja, which means my other half. The only thing is that he says this to her. He calls her naranja not even 24 hours after meeting her. And so people who don't speak Spanish see this and they're like, oh, it's just a cute nickname. But myself and other Spanish speakers read this and we're like, is he trying to like call her mi media naranja? Like they've known each other for 18 hours. This just doesn't make sense. And personally, I would not want my nickname to be orange. I know that another character is used to reveal the whole saying later on in the book, but simply using the word naranja as a nickname in the book just felt really odd to me. My third issue is that this is a dual POV book and Damien is identified as a Latino. However, the author fails to mention what part of Latin America Damien's family is from and if they have any customs, traditions, or cultural aspects that make up his Latin identity. I think that neglecting to identify Damien's Latinidad just further perpetuates this idea that all Latines are a monolith, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. We might share some cultures and, customs and traditions, but we are not all the same. Additionally, there are chapters about Abby and her family and the traditions that they have, but the same can't be said for Damien, which just made his POV chapters lack depth, and dimension, and they just fell very flat. I just don't think that there was enough research that went into writing this Latine male main character, and we tend to see this a lot with authors writing outside of their experience, especially when they're writing BIPOC characters, and they just don't do enough research to do the character or the community that that character comes from justice. The fourth thing that I thought was poorly represented was Abby's friend, Kat. Kat is also identified as a Latina, but the only descriptions we have of her are when the author talks about her tan skin and calling her a curvy Latina with siren eyes, which in my opinion, just falls into stereotyping. And we don't need this. And y'all, the fact that Kat's Latinidad wasn't even brought up until about halfway through the book just felt very pointed because it was used as a way for Kat to explain to Abby what naranja meant. And let me just say that dialogue between them made me roll my fucking eyes. Finally, I found the descriptions of skin tone to be very uncomfortable in this book. I looked it up in my Kindle and there are 47 instances where the word skin appears, and most of them are to describe Damien's skin as being tan or dark. The first time our main characters meet, Abby mentions that Damien's skin looks as though it is tanned in a way that stays year-round. Additionally, there are a few instances where Damien talks about the contrast between his tan skin and her pale skin. In the second one, he mentions how their skin is the perfect polar opposite. This came off to me as fetishizing skin tone, and it felt really icky, especially knowing the history of colorism within the Latina community. Listen, Having tanned skin and saying words like naranja and rubia does not make a character Latine. I'm honestly so tired of the poor Latine representation that has been coming up time and time again. Now, I'm not saying don't write Latine characters. I'm just saying please do your research. Hire sensitivity readers that are from that specific community so that they can bring up these points to you if there are things that you just don't experience within your own culture. Now, I think something else that needs to be mentioned in this video is that a mutual of mine, Sylvia, reached out to the author Morgan Elizabeth to bring up some of these concerns regarding the words exotic in the book and Damien's Latinidad. Now, Sylvia did receive a message back from Morgan Elizabeth saying that she was going to remove the word exotic from her book and she was going to bring up these concerns with her sensitivity readers and hire a new sensitivity reader. This was almost a month ago, and I have removed and re-downloaded the book twice onto my Kindle, and the word exotic is still there. And so the fact that exotic is still in the book makes me wonder, is she actually going to hire another sensitivity reader? Is she actually going to bring these concerns up to her current sensitivity readers? And if she is going to hire another sensitivity reader, is that sensitivity reader within the community that she's writing about? So I've also tagged a few of my mutuals in this video who have also found problems with the representation in this book. Maybe I'll do a part 2 for my thoughts on the romance in this book and why, regardless of whether or not there was poor Latina representation, I would have still rated this poorly because it just, in my opinion, was not a very good book. But I don't know, y'all, I'm tired.
All right, so basically she's being called out because there's really bad representation in this book around our hero, using the words exotic around food and things, which, like, pet peeve. But yeah, Morgan Elizabeth has responded, delayed the release of her book, and is supposedly editing this book. But I don't understand how it took this long for somebody to notice this. But at the same time, I do, because, I mean, I get it. I have books on my TBR from like 5 years ago. I could read something and be like, oh my god, how did this make this in here? And nobody's mentioned it. But yeah, I just thought this was really interesting because Morgan Elizabeth is an author I'm seeing more and more in bookstores and places when I go, and in videos and other places. So I just thought it was surprising to see this happening. And I just kind of want to make people aware so they know that this was called out and supposedly changes are being made. I've not fully followed up on if those changes have been made yet. If I find something before this video goes up, I will put it down below. But I feel like that can take a minute for like Amazon to catch up to the changes. Let's talk about everybody's least favorite Booktok main character, Kiera Lewis. So I was vaguely getting fed things about like, don't buy fanfiction, don't buy fanfiction, you can't buy fanfiction, you have to find it yourself or be gifted it. Well, lo and behold, I found out because somehow it popped up on my FYP. Because I don't have, listen, I don't have her blocked because I want to know when it happens. You know what I mean? Like, I need to know. Because I do feel questionable about a lot of her choices. I mean, she's literally reading Harry Potter for the first time in 2024 and is like reacting to it, and I don't understand that choice being made here. But on that note, she was supposedly gifted a copy of Manacled from a member of her book club who binds books. Manacled is a wildly popular Harry Potter, it's a Hermione fic. I've never read it. I don't know, maybe I will one day and like do it for my members, but I don't think I'd read it here. I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, that she got that bound, and this is a like, I mean, I'm talking wildly popular book because people are selling bound copies of it for like hundreds of dollars, I believe, like over $100, and that's illegal. Like, you are not allowed, you can bind it for yourself, you can bind it and gift it someone, but you are not supposed to exchange money to get that book because the source material is owned by the original rights holder, which is unfortunately JKR/Warner Bros, all the people, the publishers, whatever. And because of that, you can't resell that. Like, fan art is also a dicey thing. Generally fan art, I feel like, gets kind of to go okay-ish, but reselling this material bound, especially because this fic author has specifically requested not to do so because of issues, like, she's gonna pull the fic down. like, you're just gonna get AO3 in trouble, or like any other fic reading place, because you're doing this. So like, we just need to not, please and thank you, learn to bind books. It's not that, I mean, it is probably hard, but I feel like you could do it. I feel like we could learn. I've been tempted to learn just for fun. So yeah, this is just like a quick FYI reminder. Don't buy bound fics, because you need to be gifted it and or learn to do it yourself. Please and thank you. Don't ruin fic for all of us. Other thing I want to touch on is Laurell K Hamilton, who is an old school paranormal romance author. I'm literally in the middle of one of her books right now. It has issues. I'm not going to say she doesn't already, but the wildest thing I've seen to date is she basically got on TikTok and was like, do not self-publish your work. I got rejected 200 plus times for Anita Blake, and look at me now. And everyone was like, what is wrong with you? Because like, self-publishing is the best avenue for a lot of diverse authors, and for a lot of authors trying to carve out their own slice of the pie, so to speak, and like exist in a space that is less harmful to them than the traditional publishing world, let's be honest. And this was wild. But I will say this, she did actually listen to people who talked to her about this and about why she was wrong, because, you know, she's been fed the same publishing info for 20 plus years now around the fact that when you're indie, you don't make six figures. You can't make that kind of money. But like, indie authors are out here making multiples of six figures when their books do well. So like, that's not true. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I really am at the very least intrigued by it all, and think it was really interesting to see her actually pivot and learn. So I'll link to, it's still up, I'll link to her original video and the other one down below, but I just thought it was interesting to see an older author be like, don't do this, and then, oh shit, y'all were right, actually, and I was been told wrong my whole life now. Like, the market has really changed, and I was just like, how do you not know the indie market has changed at this point? But I guess too, like, she's probably head down just writing her books and carrying on, because her books, I feel like, probably do decent still. But who knows? All right, and last but not least, the final section of this month's Romancelandia. This was not as long as I expected it to be, so I'm relieved. But we're gonna get cynical again a little bit. It's fine. We're gonna talk about the authors being picked up by publishing houses. I'm trying to add this into every month, or every time I have a couple. So this month, these aren't always gonna be authors I like, but I think it's interesting to see who's being picked up. So we have Savar Miller being picked up by Source Books Casablanca for a print deal. All of her English print rights are owned by Source Books Casablanca now. I do believe her books are staying, these all I believe are staying in KU, but I'm not positive. So I thought that was interesting. Mostly, I was kind of surprised, because it's not that I don't think she's been popular, but I don't feel like she's been as popular as other authors. Same thing for the second one, Penny Reed, another author I'm not a big fan of anymore, to be honest with you, had the same deal with Source Books, and they picked up her next series. But I don't know, so they picked up the Winston Brothers, which is like, was wildly popular? Is it still I don't know. Like, I literally do not know. I don't get TikToks about people reading the Winston Brothers. But I just was like, that's interesting. And then they also picked up her next series, which is like the Fiber Farms. So yeah, they picked up Penny Reed. I think I was most surprised to see Penny Reed of the three that I'm about to share. Because honestly, I don't know. Like, I really don't know the last time I saw somebody read a Penny Reed book, which is interesting. But, you know, I know the Winston series has been mega popular for a very long time, and probably continues to be more popular than I realize as far as movement goes, but I definitely don't see them in the, like, top 100 all the time, which has been kind of the trend for most of the pickups I've seen. So we have another author I don't like, because, you know, you can't defend yourself by just saying I have a friend who's Mexican for your bad choices in a book, but whatever. Still popular. And that is Kate Stewart. Kensington picked her up for a print deal as well, and to publish the next spinoff of her Raven Cycle book series. So I guess have fun, y'all that love it. I don't know who watches Romancelandia and reads her, but I just thought it was interesting to see another one. Like I said, I don't feel like I've seen in the rotation as often. Definitely one I still see being read, but it's not one that I see, like I said, all the time. Like, some of the ones I've seen, I'm like, this makes sense. This is like constantly in the top 100 on the Kindle store. Of course, a publishing house is going to pick them up. I also think, this is where the cynical side of me is, okay? I think it's interesting how much publishers are picking up already done series to republish in print for bookstores and stuff, and also are just picking up these indie authors when, like, indie authors used to be like kind of shunned in a weird way. I think it's interesting because, like, I don't feel like we're seeing the path of, like, trying to get traditional published as much, because now it can be like, well, maybe be an indie and get high enough on the list and they'll pick you up. But I also just feel like we're taking so much of the work off of publishers to find books by them just continuously picking up indies. So that's my thoughts and feelings on that one. All right, y'all, that is it for this month's Romancelandia. I feel like so much happened in January. We're gonna knock on wood. Knock on all the wood in the house because I need to calm February, but we'll see what happens. Let me know if you think I missed anything in January, because like I said, it was a busy month. And if you don't want to do that, let me know like what your favorite weird thing that happened this month was, because like I said, I just feel like it was a way busier kickoff of the year than normal. So we'll see what happens. If you don't do either of those things, you leave me a book stack emoji, because I'm literally staring at books I need to put away right now. So we'll do that, because that's what's about to happen next. So leave me that book stack emoji down below. And I will have links to everything I can link to about this if you want to go read more, as well as links to join to be a member if you want access to things like Romancelandia Monthly early. That is available here and on Patreon. And if you want links to be my friend anywhere on the internet, I will have those down there for you as well. And I will talk to y'all in just a few days. Bye.
About to leave, already packing, come with me. I'm not really asking, we'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be. Life with no distractions, we'll get away